welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be on a topic that I personally enjoy because I have a lot of orchids and I'm always looking for compact hybrids that don't get too big, that are fragrant, and that grow easily indoors. So today's topic is going to be about compact hybrids with Brassavola Nodosa in them. So Brassavola Nodosa hybrids are in a lot of things. So you'll notice that there's a lot of BLC orchids. That's Brasso, Laleo, Cattleya. That's a cross between Brassavola, Lalea, and a Cattleya. In today's video, I want to focus on orchids that have Brassavola Nodosa as a parent. So there will be some Brasso Cattleyas, some just straight up Brassavolas. So something very close with the Brassavola Nodosa, because this orchid is found in so many things. It is a nighttime fragrant orchid. It is endemic to Mexico and Central America, so that can be found along the coastal regions there. I find these orchids to be super hardy. I can go a really long time without watering them. In the winter, it could go 2 weeks without water and it's totally fine. For beginners, this is a really good one. It's not as most people get Phalaenopsis orchids to begin, but these, despite requiring a lot more light than a Phalaenopsis, they're very easy, they're very forgiving, they don't need that much water. And the best part is that they have a really nice fragrance when they're blooming. So these are nocturnal fragrant orchids. They have a nice white flower. The flower isn't showy, but it smells divine. It's like a citrus kind of fragrance. The nighttime fragrant orchids, I just find they're all really nice. And this one is like a lemony kind of fragrance with maybe a little bit of gardenia in it. It's very hard for me to describe it, but if you have one, you'll know what I mean. They're amazing. So I'm gonna show you a couple of hybrids that I've grown through the years that I really like. I find them super easy. Look at how big this is. It's not gonna kill you. They'll get bushy, but they won't get too tall. So let's jump right in. So let's talk about the conditions for the actual species of the Brassavola Nodosa. So I mentioned they need pretty high light, so I give them bright indirect light. If you are growing indoors in a windowsill, you could put them on a south-facing window, provided you have like a sheer curtain or something like that. I grow under LED lights and they grow just fine. They're able to bloom. Bright indirect light is best for them. In terms of temperatures, these do well in intermediate to warm conditions. So I would say don't let it get under 50 degrees. I grow it indoors and my temperatures are usually above 60 degrees. And in the summer, it literally gets up to 95 degrees in the middle of summer during the day when the lights are on. And I find that this is fine. I would keep these over 60 degrees. I water this orchid thoroughly, so I will pour water through the pot. There's drainage holes in the bottom, let it drain. This one is in bark and a little bit of sphagnum moss, and I will water it again when it fully dries. So that is the basic care of the Brassavola Nodosa species. So let's talk about species with this orchid in it. So one of my first orchids that I got with it is the Brassavola Little Stars. So this is very bushy. It's not very tall though, and I love this one. It is a little bit bigger than the Brassavola Nodosa, but the flowers look quite identical. This is a cross between the Brassavola Nodosa and the Brassavola cordata, and I find that this is very, very vigorous. It grows very easily. I got this 4 years ago, and it just had like 2 little canes on it. This is almost like succulent, like they're really cool. And now it has so much more. It even has like some variegated canes that are starting to come through. You can see one right here. That's been pretty cool. This blooms twice a year. So, I mean, I do have to wait for it to bloom. Twice a year, I get some really nice flowers all over the place, but then every now and then I get spikes like on one cane. Like I have one spike right now. I don't know if you can see it. Right here, right there. So every once in a while I'll get like a rogue bloom, but generally this blooms twice a year. The fragrance is super nice. Just look at how vigorous it is. This one is in pure bark. I didn't put moss in this one, and it can dry out for a really long time. The fragrance is amazing. When it blooms, I like to put it here in my living room, so I put it by my window. I have an east-facing window. I just leave it there, and at night when it starts to emit the fragrance, it is so nice. I'm sitting on my couch, and it just smells the whole living room up. I really like it. I hear that this one is more vigorous than the Nodosa because it is the two species crossed together. So I find them both easy to grow, but this is a good one. Highly recommend it for beginners. This is very easy to find. It's very easy to grow. It's difficult to kill, as you can imagine. It's very succulent-like, so if you forget to water it, it's gonna be fine. Very tough, hardy plant. Okay, so the next orchid that I'm going to show you is the Brassavola Richard Mueller. And I actually have a lot of orchids crossed with this actual plant, and it is one of my favorites. Check out this video right here if you want to see my favorite crosses of all time, but I wanted to mention this one. This orchid is actually not that easy to find. This was gifted to me on my birthday, and I know that my friends got this from Hauserman, I think. But this is a very, very vigorous, popular hybrid to use in multiple crosses. So I have a lot of orchids with this as a parent, and this is a cross between the Brassavola Nodosa and the Laelia Milleri. And this orchid is quite small, very compact. It's gonna it's gonna have like yellow and red spotted flowers. A lot of times it makes other flowers with spotted lips when it's crossed with this. Very vigorous, and I think that's why it's used so much in crosses. It has an iconic spotted lip, usually has fragrance as well. It's used to make a lot of different orchids. One orchid that I could think of off the bat is the Brassavola Yellowbird. It's this orchid crossed back with the Brassavola Nodosa, and it makes a really nice, beautiful yellow flower with a spotted red lip. Absolutely beautiful, very vigorous. Some are fragrant, mine was not. There's a lot of variation when you cross these different kinds of orchids. Some of them turn out to be fragrant, some of them turn out to be very bright yellow, some very pale yellow. So you it's hit or miss sometimes with some of the fragrance. So sometimes you get a dud, oftentimes you will get fragrance, but this is a really cool one. I can't wait to see it bloom. This is still a small hybrid. This is still kind of on the young side, so hopefully we'll get blooms in a year or so, but it's starting to push out some new growths. I can't wait to see it. Okay, the next one, I'm pretty new to this one, but it's already bloomed for me twice. So this one is the Brassavola Morning Glory, and this one is a cross between the Brassavola Nodosa and the Laelia purpurata. And I got this as a seedling. I got this gifted I got this as a gift from my mom, and it bloomed very quickly, and it pushes out new growths so fast. So this is a very vigorous hybrid. This is a very common hybrid. Both the parents, the Brassavola Nodosa and the Laelia purpurata, are fragrant. However, I noticed that the first two times that this orchid bloomed for me, it had no fragrance. I was a little disappointed in that. It's pushing out a new growth right here, and I'm hoping that maybe the third time I'll get fragrance. So whenever you have like a younger seedling, sometimes the flowers don't come out perfect. Sometimes the fragrance doesn't come out. So I'm gonna give it a third try and see if I get fragrance on it. I really hope so. This is very easy, very vigorous. It's a primary hybrid, which is a cross between two different species. It is a little bit taller because the Laelia purpurata is taller. So it is a little bit bigger than the actual Brassavola Nodosa, but in all, it will stay with a pretty tight growth pattern. It's quite vigorous, and it's gonna give you flowers multiple times per year. I wouldn't be surprised if I get flowers on this 5-6 times a year, which is amazing. So many times you only get blooms once or twice a year, especially with species, but Whenever I get hybrids with anything with like a Richard Mueller in it or something very vigorous like this one, I just find that I get flowers like every 2 months, basically almost on every single growth, provided I'm not repotting it or disturbing it in any way. I highly recommend this one just because it's so easy. We'll see about the fragrance the third time around. There's a couple of others that are really popular that I don't have, or I used to have and I got rid of them, but one of them is the Brassavola Besso, which is a cross between the Brassavola Nodosa and the Laelia tenebrosa. That one had a really huge, beautiful lip, very nice orchid, very tight growth pattern as well. It was about the height of this, but I actually gave that away to a friend because it wasn't fragrant as well, which was very interesting because both parents were fragrant, and I let it bloom about 4 times, no fragrance. So that's an interesting thing. These are usually fragrant, but sometimes you will get some crosses that are just not fragrant. So that's just something to keep in mind. It can happen sometimes, but I gave it away just for that reason. But many hybrids out there should be fragrant. Let me know down below if you have the Brassavola Besso and if it was fragrant or not for you. Just curious. I know for many people who have the yellow bird, theirs was fragrant, mine was not, so mine was an outlier, but it happens. Another really common hybrid, I don't have this one, but I see it a lot, is the Brassavola Mary Dodson, and that is the Brassavola Nodosa crossed by the Cattleya schilleriana. So that's another very common hybrid. I'd imagine that one is very vigorous as well. I'd imagine it's very fragrant. The schilleriana is absolutely beautiful. It's something that I have on my wish list down the line. I just have too many orchids at this time, so I'm not going to be getting any more for now, but that is a very common one. And one of my favorites, I'm gonna pull it up right now for you. The fragrance is so divine. This one is really special for me. This one's the Brassavola Jiminy Cricket. It is a cross between the Brassavola Nodosa and the Rhyncholaelia digbyana. Guys, I love this orchid. So I got this from a friend and I've already divided it and it just doubles in size. It is not big. It looks a little wide. It is in a 7-inch pot, but that's because it's vigorous, but it's not very tall. So although it is vigorous, you can divide it. It's not gonna get huge on you, but what is huge is the flower. It usually pushes out 1 or 2 flowers on these little canes, and the flowers are absolutely massive. It has a wonderful nighttime fragrance. The lip is beautiful. It is crossed with the digbyana. And what I love about this orchid is that I've had the digbyana for a really long time and I've never been able to bloom it. I've had it for 4 years. It is 4 years from blooming when I bought it, so we'll see if it blooms this year. But that's a species that's a little tougher than the Nodosa, but I'm able to bloom this one and I get characteristics of that plant. The flower is enormous, like I said, that frilly lip. It's got such a nice fragrance. It reminds me of the Brassavola Nodosa, but it's a little bit more delicate. It is kind of like a citrus, kind of a little bit like lilac. It's a nighttime fragrant orchid, and like I'm telling you, the flowers are enormous. They're like 5 inches. It's a showstopper. It's one of my favorites. It's very vigorous, as I said. It blooms about twice a year for me. I do have it in semi-hydro. I'm moving away from this system, but it's so vigorous that I've just left it here for now, and I'm trying not to disturb anything unless it absolutely needs it. But we've got some new growths coming in on the bottom right here, and this is a very easy grower, and just given the cross with the digbyana, I love it, and this is my favorite of the Brassavola hybrids. So I just went through a lot. There's so many Brassavola hybrids out there, and as I said in the beginning of this video, there's Brassavola Nodosa in so many orchids, especially the ones that are BLC. They're super widespread. But what I love about it is that these are compact. They usually have really nice fragrance, and they're just really easy to grow, very hard to kill, tend to be very vigorous. Let me know down below if you have any specific Brassavola Nodosa crosses that you really like. There are so many out there, so this is not an exhaustive list. These are just some that I've had experience with or have seen a lot. And if you grow these indoors, you're gonna have success with them. They're not finicky, so I highly recommend them. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.